I'd say the thing that resonates with me most at the moment is from a guy called Dr. Joe Dispenza. He speaks about the concept of if thoughts can make us sick and thoughts make us well. And I think the reason I love that is because anytime I've been in a place where things have been so overwhelming, I felt like I couldn't leave that place or escape that place. It feels all consuming and you think it's going to be forever, which brings me to another quote, this too shall pass. But if thoughts can make us sick and thoughts make us well, made me realize that actually, despite life experiences and other things I'd been through that could have created or influenced some of the negative thinking patterns I had, there was no reason that I didn't have the power to change that through time. I think neuroscience highlights to us that over time, through the building of neural pathways, what we can do is we can create loops that we then think and we get stuck in. Something my therapist was speaking through with me the other day, which is imagine like you're wearing this pair of glasses, and in the glasses, it's your lens of how you see the world. So for me, on the left side, it was kind of, I'm not good enough. And on the right side, it was, if I step out and do the things I love, I'm gonna be rejected for it. So in turn, that kind of kept me where I was, but also it meant that everything I did, I was looking for, or assuming that I was gonna be rejected for it, or thinking, okay, this proves I'm not good enough, right? And those thinking patterns were so ingrained into me that when I listened to him speak about the concept of the fact that thoughts can make us well, we can change our thinking patterns, I began to think about how much of my view of the world wasn't actually real. My perspective of things was actually largely influenced by this lens. And the lens comes down to core beliefs. It's something that's quite consistent with CBT and other forms of therapy. We all have these core beliefs in terms of how we see the world. If somebody goes around seeing the world in the sense of, I'm good enough, I'm lovable, then in turn, that's what they meet when they go through certain situations or meet certain people in certain environments. There's a book called Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. I can't remember the exact bit, but he says in it, the girl who goes to the party with the bygone stare is indeed met with indifference by the people that she meets at that party. Basically what's highlighting is she went there expecting to be rejected, and in turn, her body language and the way she spoke meant that people treated her in that way. But in reality, it wasn't the fact that they were rejecting her, they were responding to how she was. And I would do that in multiple situations, either avoid social events, avoid seeing people, or immediately assume that I was being rejected or that I wasn't good enough, and that kind of created that lens. That stemmed into business for me. Honor coaching became a way of me proving that I was good enough to myself. You know, I thought to myself, if I get to this many clients and, you know, I can have this income, or if I get this many client results, or if my results are better than this person, then I'm good enough, then I'm good enough. And as I said to you earlier, I got to the stage where I'd hit the numbers that I thought were going to bring me that feeling about myself, and I still saw myself in exactly the same way. And so it made me realize that it doesn't matter how much we do externally, it doesn't matter how much external validation we get or create in life, we're always going to come back to the same core beliefs we have around ourselves. Unless you internally change those core beliefs and work on those core beliefs, figure out where they came from, unpack them and reinvent new beliefs, we're always going to be in a place where our life is, and our thinking patterns are directly influenced by those beliefs. There's a reason why a lot of high achievers, a lot of CEOs or people who've built incredible businesses or millionaires get to a later stage in life and report back that they would change it all for better connection. Because at the end of the day, that's largely probably what they were looking for. If thoughts can make us sick, can thoughts make us well, is such an important quote to me, because it just gives me the confidence that I have the power to change the way in which I see things and perceive things. And over these last few years, I've worked really hard on that. My brother said something really prophetic to me a couple of years ago when I came to the end of a relationship I was in, and he said to me, Ben, he said, you're half a cake, they're half a cake, and in turn, you're making a full cake. And he said, what I want for you is I want you to be your own cake, right? And it made me laugh, but it was very true, and it resonated, and I didn't think too deeply into it. But now when I think about worth, what it hit me with was this idea of we kind of make up our worth from very outsourced things. So for example, a lot of people, their worth is their work, or their worth is how other people view them, their body, their self-worth. This cake of their self-worth is made up of all these things. Maybe there's a few things that are value-based. their integrity, their loyalty, etc. But then suddenly they lose their job and they get out of shape because of something external happens in their life, and they're met with this sense of feeling quite lost through a loss of identity. And in reality, what it boils down to is the fact that they've outsourced so much of their self-worth to these external things that we're predicating the worth and identity we have in ourselves upon things that are out of our control. If we can build our self-worth internally through things that we're proud of, through things and values that we align with subjectively. You know, if my 8-piece cake was made up of loyalty, empathy, kindness, resilience, grit, all these kind of things, then in turn, even if I lose my job, or even if I fall out of shape through an injury or through a bereavement, maybe I'm going through that in turn means that I struggle with the consistency of training, nutrition, whatever it might be, my worth is still there. And in turn, this cake, the external validation, is the icing on the cake, or is the cherries on top. So in turn, even if we take those things away, you're still the full cake. The quotes I love the most are the quotes that encourage us to take ownership of our own self-worth and to predicate our self-worth in an internal, process-driven way. That says, even if my coaching stopped tomorrow because Instagram got shut down, or if online coaching was banned, that in turn I know that one, I'm still me, and I still have this level of worth and identity. But maybe more importantly, that I know that I can still create a life that I want past that, because I can apply those values and that internal worth to something new or something different. And it also takes a lot of the pressure off ourselves. I think a lot of time people are so focused on driving themselves at work to the point where they create such perpetual levels of stress that it challenges their health. Because if my identity is, I am this good at my company, or I need to become senior partner in order to gain this level of worth, I'll push back all health markers, all other stuff to get to that stage, irrespective of the fact that, you know, I'm harming myself in the process, purely because self-worth is more important in that process, or in that moment. We feel emotions we feel in that moment so strongly that we think this is going to be forever. Tom Hanks said, if you're going through something really good right now, this too shall pass. If you're going through something terrible, this too shall pass. And I think the thing that I would want to tell that version of me, that younger self, mostly to let go of outcomes. I think that when our success is predicated upon outcomes, we lose the love for the process. You know, when I was that age, and if anyone watches this who used to play rugby with me, they'll know I wasn't very good. But I loved playing rugby. I really, really enjoyed the game, and I ruined it for myself. I ruined it for myself because as soon as I got to Newcastle University and I didn't play the first, second, or third team, I quit. Why would I carry on playing something if I wasn't the best? Because if I'm not the best, then it's not going to bring me a sense of self-worth. And if it's not going to bring me a sense of self-worth, then I've lost the reason I'm doing it. I can't remember the author or speaker who said it, but it was saying as soon as we lose sight of the process, we've lost the thing that we're doing itself. You know, if somebody's painting something, and if you're a painter, if you're an author, and you're writing a book with the intention of it selling in 10,000 copies, or you're painting a painting with the intention of selling it for £50,000, during that entire process, all you're focused on is the outcome. And in turn, you lose the creativity of that process because suddenly this thing is predicated upon how the viewer's going to see it, or predicated upon it being as perfect as possible. And that's a lot of time where perfectionism comes into place through a lack of self-worth. I would encourage that version of me to just enjoy the things he was doing, get really ingrained in the process. I would also encourage him to do the things that he loved. Because in terms of worth, when we're struggling with self-worth, what we can do a lot of the time is we can predicate the things we love or things we do, our fashion, what we enjoy, upon what other people say is right, or other people think is right, to the point where we almost lose ourselves through that process, right? Because my identity is suddenly someone else. I'd rather be rejected for who I am than loved for who I'm not. And it's taken a long time for me to get to that place, a long time. It's interesting how much calmer I am now compared to then. And I think the calmness comes from the fact that I know everything's going to be okay. Not because I just have this fantastical way of looking at life, but because the evidence is now behind me. And when I say the evidence is behind me, I mean, I have so much evidence of me getting through times I didn't think I'd be able to get through, by just continuing to put myself first through that process, by dampening the flames that were already there through positive habits and through continuing to act in accordance with who I wanted to be, you know, and coaching's been a really good staple of that, where people know I'm quite emotional and people know I love talking about these deep topics. And the more I've gone through it, the more I've thought, I don't care if I'm rejected for that, because I love talking about this stuff. I love talking about the depth of how we think, and I love talking about things that can help people think better, right? So I would say to that younger version of me, just focus on doing the things that you love irrespective of the outcome, because even if that then means less income or less career or, you know, other things right now, at least you get to experience what it's like to be your authentic self. At least you get to act in accordance with what you truly love. And in a world full of comparison, in a world where a lot of our success is based upon these big external things, these extreme things, right? We can compare ourselves a lot to them and think that we're not doing well enough. Some of the happiest and most content people I've ever met don't really have much in that sense. You know, there's actually something Alex Hormozy said in an interview, which was, I think it was a friend of his or someone, where it's just a family of truckers or something else they did. I can't remember the job. And he said they're also content and happy. And they had no wish to do anything but that. They were just happy going to their work, coming home, having a good time, relaxing, going to sleep, going through life like that. And he said, if you don't have the drive to do something greater in life right now, or, you know, you don't necessarily know what it is you want to push for, don't let this comparative mindset take you away from the fact that you can enjoy life in that way. The things I'm doing now are no different to the things I was doing 4 years ago on paper. 4 years ago on paper, the coaching business was actually bigger than it was now. 4 years ago on paper, I was, you know, training as hard as I am now, stronger than I am now in some ways. On paper, things were better. On paper. Now, things are pretty much the same. And the only difference between then and now is the fact that through dealing with my shit, basically, the enjoyment of things comes down to being in the present moment with that thing. So in the past, I would be at the gym, but whilst I was at the gym, I was thinking, I'm gonna let down this client here, or this is gonna go wrong, or this is gonna go wrong. How am I gonna manage that? Right, making sure I was planning everything. Perfectionism came in to the point where it was so overwhelming, that's the reason I wanted to stop, the reason I wanted to take a different path. But in reality, what I realized was my circumstances didn't need to change, my perspective did. And the only way I was gonna get my perspective to change was through being able to get to a place where I actually felt confident in me and what I was doing. Not only in the sense of being proud of what I was doing and being confident that I was a good enough coach. Let's take coaching as the main example, right? But also in the sense of actually enjoying the coaching, because it wasn't, again, this part of my full identity. Coaching now is externally validating, but I don't see my identity as a coach, because when I do, I get so ingrained into that thing that I lose the enjoyment of that thing. So how do we maintain playfulness and enjoyment in things we're doing? Number one, I think it's really, really, really important to recognize that if you're, maybe it's better to say, why do people struggle to find the playfulness and joyful in these things? Right? Why do people struggle to find the joy in their work? Or why do they struggle to find the joy in their relationships or the things they're doing? A lot of the time it's because of the limiting beliefs they have around themselves. If I think I'm not good enough, and I think I'm not lovable, and I'm really struggling with my mental health, which I was really struggling with my mental health, to the point where I didn't like myself, then in turn, even though the work I'm doing now is the same as the work I was doing then, I didn't enjoy it then, because the whole time it was the questions of, am I doing well enough? Do I need to be doing more? How can I ensure that I'm progressing? I need this person to validate me. You know, once all my clients had replied on a Friday, then I could feel good, right? Now I let that go, and in turn it's created better results and a better client relationship for myself with them. I enjoy the process more. I enjoy the voice notes I send. I enjoy the calls I do more. I enjoy the content I make. The content I make, as mentioned to you before, right? It used to be this fear of, is it good enough? Are people resonating? If there's not likes on it, that means I'm not good enough. And now it's, my business is my business. I'm proud of what I'm doing, and I can enjoy those things more because I'm not as worried about the outcome. And I notice myself, as soon as I become worried about the outcome, like I said to you today, a post that didn't get many likes, I suddenly think the business is going to fail. And ironically, someone then gets in touch saying, I've filled out your application form because of that post, right? So you begin to then see that how do we, and it's not just managing the joyfulness and playfulness in the things we do like that, but across life, it's when I'm content with who I am, I can then be present in the moment with the things I'm doing. One of the things I said to anyone on a coaching consultation call about how I want them to progress through this is, I want your body and I want your headspace to be in the best place by the end of our coaching. But more importantly, I want these things to be in place, then you can be in present in the moment with the people you love. So you're not sat there in the evening thinking, oh, I need to think about that for work tomorrow, or when am I going to sort out my body image, or when am I going to focus on this? The other answer to how we maintain that joyfulness is discipline. Because if discipline is applied in our life to the point where we're not met with this concept of cognitive dissonance, which is the gap between the standards we live in, the expectations we have of ourselves, then we're not met with the frustration and the overwhelm and the lack of self-worth that comes off the back of that. Because in turn, we are aligned in that sense. So then in turn, we get freedom of thoughts. And those freedom of thoughts allow us to be present in the moment. And presence in the moment, if everyone knows when you're on holiday and you're with your family, let's say you're playing cards in the evening and you're just having an incredible time or incredible laugh, or other times in your life where you felt really present, you're not thinking about these other things. And that's the kind of seemingly monotonous and seemingly mundane and seemingly insignificant things in life that actually bring the most joy, because it's where we're fully present in what we're doing. So maintaining the joy comes down to how we manage the present moment, and how we manage the present moment comes down to our self-worth and the discipline that we put in place to manage that self-worth. Discipline is freedom. And I think the more I've gone through life, the more I've realized that. Because the more disciplined I've become, the more proud and more self-worth and more trust I've built. The more of that I've built, the more I've understood myself. And then the more I feel like I'm confident enough to be a version of me that previously I hid away from because of fear of rejection. If we can discipline our thoughts, if we can discipline our actions, and if we can discipline our boundaries, we can actually begin to understand ourselves in a way that's above and beyond this fear. Because for so long, that fear of rejection completely controlled my identity, to the point where I just didn't like myself. And now I do, and the only real thing that's changed is discipline. And I know that's quite reductive. At the same time, I think even when we expand it, it comes down to the same core principles, which is if you're struggling with some form of worth, if you're more disciplined in that area, I guarantee that either you will figure something out, or as T.D. Jakes says, it will be the thing that leads to the thing. But we can't figure out what that thing is if we don't put some discipline in place to be able to actually see some progression. If I always do what I've always done, I'll always be where I've always been. That's the quote that I love right now in my life. It encourages me to change and take steps towards uncertainty, or steps that are uncertain, to then figure out what comes next for me. And if what comes next for me isn't the final thing, that's okay. Because I'm enjoying the process more and more, because the more I do the process, the more I like myself, and the more I like myself, the more I want to step out and do uncertain things. So yeah.